This will be the fat bike I measure all others against. Time here with Elevation every weekend. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to do my long-term review of the Borealis Flume, which I've had just about a year. One of the things that can quickly drive the cost of a bike into the stratosphere is lightweight. So when a bike like the Flume comes along, it really undercuts the market average on the weight scale dramatically and does so at a competitive, if not unbeatable price point. You have to take notice. So I'm going to start with a quick overview of the spec and the cost of this bike before getting into the specific ride impressions and why I bought this bike in the first place. First off, I have done an in-depth first look video on this bike, so if you really want to dive deep on all the specs and features, definitely check out that video. I'll link it in the description down below and at the end of this video. This bike features a lightweight 6000 series aluminum frame, and the welds are so good they're almost invisible, which is also helped by the high quality paint. And every Flume comes stock fitted with a carbon fork, carbon handlebars, and a carbon seat post. The bike features the current fat bike standard of 150 millimeters wide spacing up front and 197 millimeters wide in the rear. This spacing allows the bike to clear the largest possible tires on the market. I spec'd my Flume with a full SRAM GX drivetrain and SRAM Level T brakes, and it has a threaded bottom bracket. The other cost upgrade I made was the Head 27.5 aluminum wheel set, and I had those wrapped with a set of 4-inch Terrain cake eaters set up tubeless. As ridden with flat pedals, a bottle cage, and the bike bell, this bike weighs just a hair over 28 pounds, and that's for a size large. This 28-pound weight is not only really impressive for a non-carbon bike, it's actually about 2 pounds lighter than my 2021 Salsa Bear Grease was when it was bone stock, as it was just over 30 pounds as ridden. So not only does the lightweight impress, but it does so at a very reasonable price point, as this bike had an MSRP of $2,270, which again, comparing to the Bear Grease, was over $100 cheaper than the Bear Grease was back in 2021, and is a whopping $679 than the same Dior Bear Grease is now. So as I think you're starting to see, this bike beats a lot of bikes out there on the weight aspect. But when you factor in the price point, it's why I've been calling this bike the best fat bike value on the market. So does this mean that the Flume is the best fat bike I've ever ridden? And it's not. The Borealis Crestone I had on loan from Borealis for over 6 months is objectively a better bike, and that's mostly because it's even lighter, but that does come at a cost. This statement I'm about to make is really for illustrative purposes only, as it's not really something that can be precisely quantified, but I think the Flume is 95% as good as the Borealis Crestone for about 50% of the cost. So again, value is the theme here. And if you look at some other bikes that are in direct comparison with this Flume on the price point, like the Surly Ice Cream Truck, which I do own, a 2020, and the entry-level Trek Farley, which are both great bikes that I'm a big fan of, even though they come in at about the same price point as my Flume as tested, both of those bikes weigh 5 to 7 pounds more at that price point. I know discussing what may be considered a weight-weenie topic may be counterintuitive for a fat bike. However, I'm here to tell you, once you get a fat bike under that 30-pound threshold, it really levels up the performance feel, and you still get all that awesome traction and comfort from the fat tires. So a fat bike under 30 pounds really does level up the fun factor, as it makes the rides much more enjoyable, and you can go for even longer. So now moving on to some more specific ride and performance impressions from my year with the Flume. The Flume has what would be considered traditional cross-country geometry. And I only bring this up because I have heard some negative comments about the older XC geometry versus more modern and progressive geometry. So let me talk about this for just a moment. I have thousands of miles on noticeably slacker fat bikes. And when I ride my Flume, I never think if only this bike was more progressive on the geometry. Is it possible that this bike could be better with more progressive geometry? I guess it is, at least in some specific applications, but I personally feel that geometry is way overstated for most people, especially on bikes not really targeted for more aggressive forms of riding, meaning descending. I will even venture to say that geometry is something that manufacturers use to spur sales of new lines of bikes. So whether it's the mass rider market demanding these more progressive geometry numbers, or it's the marketing departments making people think they need to have it, I'll let you decide. Most importantly here for the Flume, for a fat bike doing fat bike things, I really think the argument for a more progressive geometry is even less of a factor, as a slacker bike can actually be a detriment when riding in the snow, especially if it involves climbing. And that's because you really want more balance and weight on that front tire. That's not only for steering and control at slow speeds, but this also distributes the weight between both tires for flotation effects, whereas a significantly slacker geometry can shift the weight bias rearward. And in my experience, the Flume has been great in the snow. I've been bouncing back and forth forth between it and my Surly ice cream truck all winter, and unless I expect extreme or unpredictable conditions up in the mountains, I've been mostly choosing to ride the Flume, even though it's running smaller volume 27.5 by 4-inch tires. I bought the Flume because I wanted a lighter weight, performance-focused fat bike, and being aluminum, it can be had at a reasonable price point, and I felt like it might be a little more robust standing up to travel than a full carbon bike might be, but also without the weight penalty of a steel frame bike. So the Flume has become my default fat bike, and that's for general use year-round and all types of riding, and it's been doing all of these things exceedingly well. When I ride the Flume, especially if I haven't ridden it for a while, I'm always slightly taken aback at how fast, efficient, and fun it is to ride, especially in the dirt. In these easier dirt rides, it just exhibits a go faster vibe and is a pleasure to ride. And this bike regularly lays down times not far off some of my older hardtail 29ers. And again, it does so with all that traction and comfort that a fat bike gives you. So I started this video off saying that this is the fat bike that all others will be measured against. And yes, for me, anytime I ride, test, or look at another fat bike, I'll be thinking about the cost to weight ratio and how that bike measures up to this one as a performance value proposition. If you want to check out the Flume yourself, I linked the Borealis website down below, and you can look at their preset builds, any deals they have, or use the bike builder and build exactly what you want and see where you're at. And the cool thing about the Borealis bike builder is it gives you a wide range of choice, and it gives you control over the cost and the weight of the bike. So if you found this video helpful, drop a like down below. It does really help out the channel. If you have any questions, comments, or your own experience to add to the conversation, drop that down in the comments down below. And if you want to continue to follow my fat, adventure, and mountain bike content, subscribe now. It's free for you and easy with just a click of a button, and it'll ensure you don't miss any future content. Lots more coming, so stay tuned. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.